3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to share my screen here. I got Frank Klesitz here with me. We're going to talk about how to cold call successfully while mitigating your risk. We are still Phone Animal. I'm the CEO of Phone Animal. We'll do a little intro, but I'm still a firm believer in cold calling is the best way to get listings, and a lot of benefits to cold calling that we're not going to go all into in this webinar. But in order to do it well, there are some laws and legalities around it that you definitely need to be aware of to protect your business, your investment. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Cool.
So Frank, I just introduced myself. I'm the Phone Animal CEO. We are a real estate lead generation company focused on generating or connecting homeowners that are looking to sell with top agents around the nation. And Frank, you are the Vyral Marketing founder and co-founder and CEO.
Yep.
And really, like, I know we're going to get into here, and we've got a big kind of asterisk. Neither of us are lawyers. Both of us care a lot about this and are at least interested in.
Well, we run in the marketing game, and we fall in love with our clients, not the product. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can whenever you're engaged in something like this that has litigious risk, that you're protected. So we've consulted with attorneys. We wrote big attorney check retainers, but we just figured we would just share what we know. But we are not attorneys, and this is not legal advice. And some of it could be wrong because the stuff changes. But it at least gives you. Our goal today when we put this together, JP, was just like, let's let people know that there's even a law about this.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know that there's even any laws, or just grossly, negligently, wantonly breaking them gratuitously.
Yeah. I couldn't have put it more elegantly.
Did you like those great words?
Yeah, those were big words. I'm gonna have to go look those up in a dictionary after.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, exactly right. And it changes by state to state, maybe even at the county level. But Frank, it's pretty obvious why I care about the cold calling piece, because I've got a business that cold calls. You've got a business that is all
it's
about
all database and relationship is the antithesis of cold calling.
I think I want to start just like, why do you know so, and you know a lot about this stuff. Like, why do you know so much about this?
Well, it started with, so my firm is Vyral Marketing, and we help you stay in touch with your database with video and positioning yourself well with video and creating blogs and Facebook ads for inbound marketing to your list, which is, the antithesis of like interruptive cold call marketing, right? You couldn't have more of a dichotomy of that. So why am I here? Well, first is lots of clients ask us, can you mass text our database? And I go, absolutely not. You are not mass texting your database. And then they're like, can we maybe do like a ringless voicemail to the whole database? And it's changed a little bit. There's a court decision we're going to talk about, but at least until up until a couple of weeks ago, absolutely not. You're not doing a slide dial and a ringless voicemail to your whole database. And everyone's like, well, they're my database. I know them. Like, you don't have express written consent. What? Huh? Express written consent. And now you start turning into an attorney of starting to help guide the client to understand the laws. I don't want you ringless voicemailing and mass texting. You can certainly email, you can certainly call, but can I take all my contacts in my database and load them into a triple line dial or just pound my way through them to get a message out? No, I do not want you doing that. And everyone's like, well, why not? Everyone else is doing it. I'm like, well, that's not going to work well in front of the judge with that excuse, because there's laws against it.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason. And you could still do it. There's still nuances, but you have to understand really how the law, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, which is a 1991 law that was passed because people would just buy machines that would just dial 00001 and 00002 or whatever, and just mass call people. And the courts have interpreted that differently to basically, arguably, your iPhone as an auto dialer, or if your software that's hosted on, God forbid, the same server of something that has an auto dialer, it has the capacity to be one. And plaintiffs' attorneys have started whole firms around just going after people because basically the Supreme Court, up until a certain amount of time ago, didn't define exactly what an auto dialer was, because technology has pervade its way so much into all this stuff where almost anything could be classified as an auto dialer. And we'll talk about this, but Facebook got hit for like something that clearly wasn't an auto dialer, but could be interpreted as such. And then the Supreme Court laid down the law and defined it, which is good for us in the telemarketing industry, or more specifically you in the advertising industry. I would say. Yeah. Right.
No, that's a good summary. So like, I guess the reason why you really care about it is because people come to you as a lead expert.
Well, and they also ask us too, hey, Frank, not only are you helping me stay in touch with my database, how can I grow it?
Yeah.
I'd say, well, there's lots of ways. I mean, it's not what we do at Vyral. I happen to know them. I mean, you could do cold direct mail, you can run TV, you can run radio ads, and you can hire a phone animal to load up a list of people and call them.
Yep.
I mean, wonderful. And, do you think everyone that you call is magically going to sell their home right there on the spot? I mean, I think that's about a zero.
Yeah.
Or close to zero.
Unfortunately not.
I know. What do you do with all those people once you actually get their permission to stay in touch? Well, that's where Vyral Marketing comes in. Exactly. So I figured it'd be kind of a cool webinar for us to come together. We're both passionate about this, not because we geek out over laws. We're not attorneys, but we're passionate about protecting our client. And we want to make sure that we give you good advice. Well, I have to be careful with my language. We share with your opinion on maybe how this should be used as you consult your attorney. Obviously the liabilities on you and all those things, to at least guide you to understand that this stuff exists.
Yep.
And then you could take this to orient yourself and get your real advice from an attorney that has successfully defended against these claims. Yep. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So thanks for putting this on, JP.
Awesome, man. So let's get it going. We're going to talk about the legality, like Frank said. There's kind of three big pieces to that. One's the data, two is the dialer, and three is recording. There could be others, but those are the three ones that we primarily see. And we're going to kind of talk through each of these one by one. So let's start with the data, man. The biggest piece, or maybe not the biggest piece, but there's the DNC, the do not call list, which if you're not familiar with it, if somebody doesn't want phone calls, random phone calls, they can go to the federal do not call list, register with it, and say, I don't want to be called without permission, without consent. We have the same stuff with email marketing, right, Frank? Like if somebody doesn't want one, they've got to, vaguely similar. And so that's great. I think the last stat I saw, it was there's 50 million people on the DNC.
It's most people. There's a lot of people on it.
It's a lot of people. And so if you're going to be cold calling, you got to procure a list. You got to procure data somehow, whether it's one of the main lead sources like Vulcan or RedX or Cole Realty. There's hundreds of them. Zoom Info, Info USA.
Let me step in really quick. What JP means with data, and JP, turn your speakers down just a little bit because the audience is getting the reverb when I speak. It's one of the benefits of having headsets. You're watching these.
I know.
I know. It's okay.
I'm sorry, man. What a rookie move.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. I know. Just turning my volume down a little bit because there's reverb. What JP means with data is the address, the name, the first name, last name, and generally you append with a third-party service the phone number, whether it's a mobile or landline, that's appended to probably the property address, or more specifically, for those of you that know, you probably append it to the mailing address of the person. So you have this giant spreadsheet of here's all these homeowners, in this case, probably for real estate, if we're talking about a real estate professional, here's all these homeowners, here's their phone numbers. We get this list, but it necessarily hasn't been scrubbed if any of those numbers have been registered with the national or state DNC, right, JP?
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Is that better?
Oh yeah. There you
go.
go.
I got my AirPods in. I'm a pro now.
Yeah.
So that's all right. So what, how do I get access to scrub this list? I think is a natural next question. One, you can go sign up for a subscription account number with the do not call list. So it's do not call.gov.
Actually, JP, I'm sorry, man. I'm telling you, just for the audience's sake, I want you to go back to the other microphone. Those earpods are too hot. I know you can't win today.
I can't win. Okay.
I know. Yeah, they're a little hot. You guys hear yeah, it's a little better. You're good.
How about this?
It's fine, man. We'll do it. Yeah, they're bringing the audio down. You're good to go. Keep going about DNC for everybody. And I think we lost his microphone. Change your microphone back to your MacBook, I think there, JP, on Zoom. We're getting there.
We here?
Yep, perfect. Much better. Good job.
All right. Sorry about that. Obviously, I need to take one of Frank's class on just how to conduct a normal video.
Well, you don't need to know that. You're good at cold calling.
that is our specialty. So anyways, I was talking about the DNC. Like, how do you get so how do I know who's on the DNC or not? Well, the good news is you can go by a subscription account number with the national DNC. You go to donotcall.gov. We can send this after, and you can get access up to 5 free area codes. 5 area codes for free. If you want additional ones, you've got to pay for them. I think it's like $66, $70 per each one you get. Or you can pay for the entire national DNC like Phone Animal does, which you probably don't need to, which is $18,000. But that allows you to make sure you're scrubbing against your data sources, like Frank just explained, to make sure that you are properly abiding by removing everybody who's on that list.
Yeah. And let's be honest, a lot of people are on it. So you have to probably start with a very large farm.
Yep.
It's hard to go with very niche lists if you're going, when you're going to be DNC compliant. So you're probably starting with like the whole county of, again, this is if you're in real estate, or you're starting with a large addressable market, because when you do run the DNC scrubs, it's going to cut it down, which is fine. Got it? And here's the argument.
Frank, it's 50%.
50%. There you go. So you want to start with a larger list of a pool you're going to go calling into, you're going to reach out to, because now you have to do DNC scrubs. But there's not just DNC scrubs. There's other ones too, JP.
Yeah. So why don't you talk about that, the litigator scrub?
Yeah, so litigator scrubs are probably the ones you're really worried about. So here's the deal with DNC. This is, you don't want to call anyone without if they've requested to be removed, you want to honor that. There's other things we'll talk about DNC here in a minute. But the real people you want to worry about are what's called serial litigators. All right, these are individuals who make a living suing telemarketers. They'll have 20 different cell phones sitting in a shoebox, and they spend their day opting into web forms that are just not quite compliant. And you call them, or they get their numbers pulled in some way, and you call that phone number. They log it, they write it down, and a couple of days later, you have a demand letter for probably about $5,000. That if you don't pay, that it goes into legal proceedings. They're called serial litigators. It's where a lot of these lawsuits come from. It's not like somebody that's just a normal person that decides to sue a telemarketer. This is somebody who knows the court system, knows the laws, knows the ins and outs, probably is in cahoots with an attorney to get settlements, right? And it's called a serial litigator. So you can search this. So there's firms that take a look at all the court complaints that have any type of DNC or Tcpa litigation, and they basically write down the phone numbers that show up in the court complaints, and they sell them. Well, that's nice. So you can go to any one of these services online to get a list of all the people who have actually filed a formal complaint with like the DNC or some type of litigious act in some way as a litigator. And you certainly want to suppress those people from the call list. Now, there's many sources out there how you can go do your own research. Some are paid or some are unpaid. I don't have any ones I specifically endorse. But once you get your main call list, you want to scrub everyone who's DNC off of it recently. All right. And remember, that'll be called into, if you get hit with a lawsuit, they're going to say, did you actually do this? And you want to have proof of doing it. Right. And it's also a good idea. This is not legal. I mean, it is legal, but it's not something that's like a defensible thing. It's just like, let's just make sure if anyone's sued a telemarketer before, let's not call those people.
Right.
And you can get those lists, and I would suppress those people as well from your list. What we call this in data is the data waterfall process. It's like the data starts here, and there's this waterfall process all the way down to get it squeaky and clean. So then when it actually goes into your dialer, you're ready to go. Now I'm going to give one more suppression list here that I'm going to add.
Please.
This is your own internal DNC list. So chances are, if you're looking at hiring a company like Phone Animal, you probably tried this before you go pay a company to do it, because you realize how hard it is. Got it? So you're like, oh God, this is really hard.
Yeah. The
management, the time, I'm going to go give Phone Animal money. You probably have an internal DNC suppression list. You're required to have this by law. This is anyone who you've called in the past inside your existing CRM who has said, take me off your list. And hopefully you're keeping an internal suppression file. So you also want to suppress against the internal suppression file as well, not just the purchase DNC, not just a litigator scrub. But if you're a client of Phone Animal, I recommend you send in a suppression list from your own CRM or your past calling campaigns, and they'll remove those individuals too.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. Even if you're doing it yourself though, like you need to have a process for how you train your people on putting them on the DNC and how you keep that up to date. That's all.
Which is also called into if you get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring this up now.
Yeah, please.
There's this is really geeking out, but I was always wondering, is this even a thing? Like, do people get sued? I never really hear about it. I don't think people bring this up on Facebook if they get hit. But there's a website called Pacer. It's the public access to electronic court records.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Pacer and type in, I don't know, EXP, Keller Williams, Global Banker, any one of the big names, and you'll see all of the lawsuits filed against them. They're all there in civil court. And a majority of them have to do with like endless texting, endless calling me 3 times, using these dialers. And you can see what the plaintiff's attorney is asking for. This is what the plaintiff's attorney is saying, hey, I'm suing you. You need to provide me with all of this documentation that shows that you are compliant, that you were providing the training, that you were doing all these things necessary, and God help you if you don't have it. So it's helpful. What JP is saying here is you have documentation that you're not only are you doing DMC, but you have some like a sign-in sheet or some type of documentation that you're actually doing a bona fide decent job of trying to train your people to be compliant with this. And there's not just this reckless disregard of saying the hell with it, basically. Yeah. That will get you really trouble. All right.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I actually read recently, you asked like, you know, how much money are like, how many times are lawyers suing people, or like what type of, you know, what size are people getting sued for? I read recently that it's like $1 billion industry for these plaintiffs.
It's huge. Now, a recent court ruling has changed that, which we'll talk about. Yeah, very recent.
So why don't I mean, actually, we can talk really about calling times real quick, and then we'll get into that.
Sure.
So
great.
Calling times is pretty simple, everyone. You can't be making calls, and every state's a little bit different, but essentially it boils down to you can't be making calls before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. for almost every state.
Really reasonable times.
Which are really reasonable times. And so unless you're having a wild Friday night and you get a cheesy gordita crunch and you're feeling really good about that one prospect. And
hey, let's prospect.
Yeah, let's prospect. Maybe hold off on that. But that's really it with calling times. You know, call whenever you're awake.
Yep. Very good.
Is there like, you know, opt-in leads, Frank? Do you like? It's,
you know,
I'll
share with you. I'll share you a little bit here with data too. Just a couple other DNC things that you want to keep in mind is that you need to reveal who you really are on the phone. This is a hard one. A lot of people like to do cold calls, like to be coy of who they are. The scripts that you use will call into question. You need to actually say, here's my name, here's the company I'm with. You have to say that when you make your calls. That's actually a part of the DNC laws. And this is not secret. Just go Google DNC laws and it'll say like, these are the things you have to do to remain compliant, right? So you have to actually reveal who you are. A little tip sometimes, I'll give the audience this, is you might want to maybe file a DBA or use a second company or a second name when you're calling. Because when you do call, someone might get really angry at you for calling. Even if you are like being compliant, you call them once, it's no big deal, but you might get some complaint on your company that like, oh, this person called me, but dude, I just like made one phone call and I hung up and I followed all the rules with you, man. It was not a big deal. But they go online and get these negative reviews. Something that's been advised to me by my attorney, you want to check this out, but you can file a doing business as on your LLC. So you're just showing up as a company that's just like yours. It's still legal. It's still the real company how to get a hold of you, but it's not just hitting your main team name when you say it on the phone to watch the negative reviews online. For example, one of the things that we do, I own rental property. I never write the lease in the name of the owner of the LLC because that's what we use to acquire the businesses. Yeah. We file a DBA for the property management. So the tenants that get angry about really reasonable things go and badmouth a separate entity online and not like my main entity.
That's a great tip. That's a really
so
good
again,
tip.
Check with your attorney, make sure it's cool, make sure that's legal. Yeah. You know, we're not trying to like, you know, bait and switch in any ways, just operate under a different trade name for a purpose, which is possible if we look into.
Yeah. And does that cost any money, Frank?
I think it's like $99 for the state, depending upon your state, to file a DBA. That says it stands for doing business as.
Yeah. So great. I mean, we've talked about this Facebook decision. Why don't we start there? You want to tee that one up?
I will. So basically the TCPA, from what I understand, is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. It was a 1991 law, as far as I know. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't really know all the details. But essentially the courts, they wrote it, they very sloppily wrote it. And the way it's written is, does the software or does the system have the capacity to dial a number without human intervention? So lawyers have had billions of dollars arguing the word capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And there really hasn't been a real ruling on that. And the last thing you want to do is get caught up in a litigious argument over the definition of the word capacity, and you're just getting drained in legal bills. So you just settle out. That's how that works. Got it? So essentially what happened is Facebook found themselves in the same definition of an auto dialer. Good luck to the law firm that took on Facebook and their deep pockets. Facebook's like, no. You ain't getting us. So they kept writing the checks to defend themselves, which none of us could ever afford, right? Which went all the way to the
that Zuckerberg does.
Yeah, I don't, unfortunately. No, I do not. But it went all the way to the Supreme Court. I mean, God help you if you're the defendant in that argument.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd be able to financially make it that far. But it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically defined an auto dialer. Now, there's a lot of interpretation here of how this is going to be read, but it favored it in the most favorable stance. And basically an auto dialer is something that literally is just, the system's just dialing random numbers, which is awesome because that's not what we're doing. We're getting real numbers with DNC scrubs. We might be using a system that's maybe dialing the numbers instead of us, which is still on the risky side, but it really got rid of you getting caught up in these, I don't know if I'd use the word frivolous, but it's definitely in that direction. Opportunistic.
Yep.
Opportunistic.
Yeah.
These plaintiffs' attorneys' opportunistic TCPA litigation, where you basically caught up and settle out because you don't want to have to go to the Supreme Court to define if you're using a legal dialer. So here's the deal. Here's how the law basically was interpreted up until basically a few weeks ago of this recording, is that you cannot use any type of system that dials 1, 2, 3 lines at once, or basically you're sitting back and the system's dialing the numbers and you're just doing your thing. All right. And if you call a cell number using an auto dialer, or if it even had the capacity to do it, meaning you could be clicking to call, but if there was an option to switch to multi-dialing feature, see the capacity, or let's say you actually had the software that only is click to call, but the vendor also had another version of the software on the same server that had the capacity. Now the server has the capacity, and now you're caught up in a lawsuit. Oh my God. This is how crazy this got.
Nightmare.
It really was for a lot of people that got caught up in this. So the fine was, if you didn't know the law, basically, you would be fined $500 per cell number you charged. Mm-hmm. Now, what they'll do when they're going after you, they're going to subpoena all your dialing records. They're going to take all the thousands or tens of thousands of numbers that you called, match them with national wireless records, multiply it by 500, and that's what they're going to ask for in the court demand. Good luck with that one. Then in discovery, if they actually found out that you knew it was illegal, God help you, I believe the fine was $1,500 per number. Again, I'm not sure. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And they multiplied the number times, depending upon the state, times 1,500. And this is what they would ask for in the settlements, and the plaintiff's attorneys would get it because it was illegal. Now, you can also call, but you could call landlines using these auto dialers. It was the cell phones, which was the big issue. And it also started merging into, the court started defining text message as a call and ringless voicemail as a call. So if you started mass texting or you started doing the ringless slide dial voicemail stuff, that still was interpreted by the courts depending upon the circuit. All right, we're going into really legal stuff here, detailed stuff, but that was also a call using automated technology to, communicate with people without human intervention. So what happened was Facebook got caught up in this, and they went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled very clearly that there's a very conservative definition of auto dialer. So hopefully you're going to see this escalating war of these lawsuits, these huge settlements coming down considerably, which is very favorable. And if you have time watching this, just type in Facebook decision TCPA and you'll see it all over the web. It was a big, big deal for advertising and marketing industries.
I think a really big win for us.
Absolutely.
I mean, like you said, they ruled in the favor. They ruled 9-0 in the Supreme Court.
Was it 9-0?
It was
Look
9-0.
at you.
It was a sweep. And I believe, Frank, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the reason why Facebook got caught up in it was because of their like verification text of like,
Yeah,
which
it wasn't even marketing.
auto dialer
Yeah,
call.
they just had an auto text going out to protect someone for their account from getting hacked.
Yeah. It was like
and some opportunistic, probably serial plaintiff, I don't know, sounds like one that knows what they're doing is like, man, I can see how many texts Facebook sent out for this, multiply it by 1,500, and I'll never have to work a day of my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Took that text, right? Found a law firm that said, I bet you we can cajole the courts about the courts have been ruling in the favor of this capacity extremely broadly and loosely. Yep. We might be able to get a giant sum at Facebook. And Facebook was like, no, bro, you ain't. We're going to the Supreme Court. And they lost 9-0.
Yeah.
Feel sorry for that plaintiff's firm that put all that money in that and got nothing.
You think
I don't. I don't feel sorry for them at all.
So, I mean, I'm just going to recap a few things you said there, Frank, because I think that are important. Like, one, they've changed the definition. And so, like what most real estate agents will be doing whenever they're calling lots of people or doing something like circle prospecting. They're calling a targeted area of people, maybe a zip code, maybe some neighborhoods. And as long as you're taking out the DNC, and that's legality stuff. And then maybe being extra cautious by doing the litigator scrub that you mentioned.
That would be recommended, not required.
You should be set. However, it is still a little dicey. If you're calling landlines, which who has landlines anymore?
Not many.
Not many. And if they do, it's only because they got it cheaper with the bundle package from AT&T. And so there's not that many regulations with landlines as far as I understand it. With cell phones, there's still some ambiguity there. We, personally in-house, we've got a dialer where there is manual action on every single call.
And let's talk about that.
Okay.
So there's expensive dialers and inexpensive dialers.
Yep.
Inexpensive dialers, you just sit back. It calls 1, 2, 3, even 4 lines at once. And it just starts calling people until someone answers the phone. Got it? And then it connects you. Mm-hmm. Those were completely illegal, probably up until a couple of weeks ago, to use calling cell numbers. The Facebook decision changes that, but there's still a lot of case law and rulings that have to be before I can say it's safe.
Yep.
Follow me? That's going to take a long time.
I agree.
On how the courts work.
Yep.
So those are your expensive dialers. Now, your expensive dialers have figured out how to kind of, protect you, mitigate the most risk with this, where essentially, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but you literally hire somebody to sit there and click because there's human intervention. Do you follow me? It's not software. Mm-hmm. All right. And the system, the software makes that efficient to get your number of dials in. So if you did get caught up in a lawsuit where it's like, hey, you were using automated telephonic dialing technology without human intervention to dial these phones, well, you have two things you have to strengthen yourself. I have the Facebook decision, which is going to work its way through good laws. But also every single call, there was manual person clicking to call and connecting it to software did not initiate the call, a human initiated it. Those are the more expensive dialers. They do a good job with that, JP.
No, you did a perfect job, and to be transparent, that's what Phone Animal's doing. We have a really expensive dialer that we spend a lot of money and time investing in customizing to Phone Animal, and we've got
where there's human intervention for each call.
Yep.
And that's it.
And we're actually hiring for that job now, Frank. So if you want to be a clicker.
Oh, a clicker?
You can be.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't last a day. You would be too slow. You would get fired.
I'd be too slow.
I know. And I know this sounds like a lot, and that's,
well, it is. It's a $1 billion litigious industry. It is a lot.
Exactly. So, that's why you've got companies like Phone Animal.
Yeah, it's like just to give you our opinion on like kind of how this works to protect you. Yeah. Exactly.
And again, different states have different laws, but briefly, I think this is a pretty short point, recordings. So there's one party versus 2-party state recordings. And what that means is, I believe in the majority of states I actually looked it up. There's
it's a wiretapping act.
It's a wire. Yeah, exactly.
It's a wiretapping act that basically has been turned into something the marketing industry has to deal with because we want to record calls for coaching and training.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in 38 states, as long as one party, and a party means like, are you involved in the call? So if you're involved in the call, I'm in Texas, and Texas is a one-party state. As long as I'm agreeing to that call, you can record that call. If it's a two-party state, so you need to know your state.
Like California's two-party, I think.
California's two-party, I think like potentially New York, Pennsylvania. You got to have consent from both sides to be recording. And I know like a lot of those auto dialers that real estate agents use a lot of the time, like will automatically record. And so you just got to be sensitive to what's going on in your state.
Couple tips with this one. If you're predominantly calling into a two-party state, do not leave automatic call recording on. You're just building up a treasure trove of ways you can get sued in discovery. That'd be bad. If you're calling into one-party state, you can probably leave the recording on and you'll be okay. It just depends where people are. The way that you save yourself on all of the calls, and we've done this, and JP, you can test this out. This is just something we've done, is we added to our script, hi, this is Frank calling on a recorded line and wanted to let you know, blah, blah, blah. And it actually kind of made them listen. Yeah, I think it actually improved response. This is all anecdotal, but like whenever we made our outbound calls, I'd be like, hi, this is Frank Klesitz. I'm with ABC Realty calling on a recorded line. And the reason for my call is blah, 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 blah. That was it. And I think just doing that, even though we were doing it because I wanted to be safe with everything, like got them to perk up and listen.
the blunt transparency caught them off guard.
Yeah, I'm calling on a recorded line.
That's fantastic.
Then the next thing that we do is, there's two reasons. Well, the main reason is there's two things. So you have all these call recordings building up, which an attorney has advised us, that can be used as evidence against you for something.
Sure.
So you probably don't want to have years of those on storage. Case in point. So he says, have an internal policy that every 30 days you delete all the call recordings for consumer privacy.
Yep.
So if you have a consumer privacy, and that's another way of looking at it. Okay, it's both that's kind of a smart attorney. I was like, okay, we delete all call recordings it's an internal policy. We delete all call recordings every 30 days is kind of how you handle that. I wouldn't leave them all on file for years, then building up. Because again, if you're this is about mitigating risk. If do you like that word? An opportunistic plaintiff's attorney, big word. An opportunistic plaintiff's attorney wanted to make an example of you, you would make their day if they had tens of thousands of phone recordings to go through.
Right. That just goes back to what you were talking about earlier with the pacer, like have systems processes in place to mitigate your risk.
100%. And that's the word. Mitigate is lessen risk.
Lessen risk. Yeah, exactly. Anything else on this slide? I think it's pretty straightforward from there.
Pretty straightforward. Just don't use reckless call recording if you don't know what's going on with laws.
Yeah. You talked about this, Frank. I'm going to skip that slide. Is there anything else?
And let me just share that with you. That's just an attorney giving me some advice that kind of guided me. It was a really interesting conversation that really, I was like, hey, we're making calls. I'm using my real LLC name. The problem is like the reviews I'm getting are when just like people are like just chewing me out for like cold calling them, following all laws. He's like, well, you can file a DBA and call under that. It's still legal.
Yeah.
Like, great. So check that out. That might be an option for you guys.
Cool. Again, we'll give the caveat. That's an opinion.
That's an opinion. I have no idea. We are not a lawyer. Do not do that without seeking legal advice.
Yeah.
And from your state boards or whatever else you have to check.
Right. So I think like it was like, okay, we just kind of hammered on all the bad things about potentially cold calling. And so I just wanted to like kind of reiterate people like cold calling can be really effective. There's a reason why people do it and a lot of successful people that are growing big businesses. And just briefly wanted to talk about like what are expectations if you do have a cold caller, whether that's in-house, potentially outsourced, what that would look like. You're going to be looking at, depending on what type of soft phone system they're using, but probably we want to make sure they're compliant. They're going to be making 300, 400 calls a day. A lot of that's going to be dependent on their contact rate. And the reason why you see a big swing in contact rate is because it does matter what lead source they're calling. There's really high quality leads that you can call that maybe you're getting closer to 10% contact rate or Maybe it's just a complete cold call and you're getting closer to 5. And so
Big fan of absentee owners, vacant absentee owners.
Definitely.
Vacant absentee owners. Let's throw a couple out there. Obviously, FSBOs, very good. Old expireds are very good.
Yeah, you don't really want to be calling new expireds right now because they're no good. There's got to be a
and it's also very competitive. You're going to call a new expired, it probably needs to be you on the phone, let alone showing up at the doorstep.
Yeah.
And then also landlords with leases expiring is a good list.
It's a great list.
So those are some of the lists that you can use.
Yep.
I'm also going to throw in there your own darn database. People that are opening emails, clicking on links, engaging in your stuff is good.
Yeah.
So that's when JP's talking about, better lists. Those have better rates of contact than just like, hey, just pull everyone in the county and call them all.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be probably even better than a 10% contact rate, frankly.
Yeah.
And what are your expectations? What are you going to get from these people? Again, it depends on what lead source. So like if you're calling a FSBO, who's probably going to be picking up your call a little bit more because they're listing their house. But what's the expectation? Whenever we do circle prospecting, which circle prospecting is basically like picking a neighborhood or a zip code that you want to work and you want listings in, and just kind of calling all the homeowners that are not on the DMC. We typically see 1 to 2 seller nurtures a day, which we can get into the definition later, or you can just go to Phonial's website to define that. If you're calling your database, maybe you're looking for 1 to 2 appointments a day. Maybe you're calling from, they opened up one of your Vyral Marketing email to the database. I know we've used Vyral. We use Vyral. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, we do.
We use you guys. And, I remember our first email out. I mean, we got so many opens and clicks. And I believe we had led to 20 sales, in the first few weeks. It was massive. So there's a little promotion of you guys because and we got tons of pickups.
Yeah, hire Vyral Marketing. We'll hit your database and then send over to Phone Animal and they'll call them.
Exactly. And then call Cadence. If you're doing this in-house, just want to provide some advice. Like if you're doing circle prospecting, what we do is we call people 4 times in a month, once a week until we hit that 4th time. The reason why is because the more they see the number, the more likely they are to pick up that call. After 4 times, we consider them archived, and then we'll start to call them again in 6 months, which is when we consider them a new lead, because things change in 6 months. So that is just our basic call cadence, and I'm happy to do a separate conversation around that because it's a pretty big one.
Little tip with the phone number too. I think we're going to talk about this here, but it's a good segue.
Yeah.
Is for those of you that have cell number, like you have your iPhone, right? And you get a number, like a local number calls you. So we always want to use a local number. We want to purchase a number that's local to the area, that when they call that number back, it actually goes to your business. That's very important. That's the law. You can't be spoofing numbers that don't really exist when you call back. All right. But when you pick a 402, that's where I'm from, 402, but you pick any number, like take 512 for Austin, right? 512? 512 is Austin. When you call, it should say Austin on the iPhone, not some city out in the boonies. That's still a 512.
Yep.
Because that gives it away. It's a telemarketer.
Yep.
What you want to do is you want to make sure you find out what's the city that's associated with that number, and make sure the actual city shows up. Now, those are hard to come by. So you're gonna have to buy those. They're not very expensive. You can go online saying buy phone numbers. It might be a couple bucks, but it's well worth it when it shows up as the actual real city on the caller ID versus it's still the local number, but it's out in the boonies somewhere, right? Yeah. The other thing too, you have to pay attention to with the number is after a while, I don't know, maybe someone clicked on their phone, reports spam or whatnot. There's this whole, the industry changed last year with calling, and they're really holding the cell phone providers and companies more accountable with robocalling, which is not what this is, but they kind of lump us into it. It's called Stir Shaken.
Yeah. So
if you go check out Stir/Shaken, they call these names. They're acronyms, right? But it has to do with creating these databases of numbers of oh, this is one that shows up as robocall, possible spam. You want to have some proactive steps to make sure that your number doesn't show up that way.
Yeah, that's
only calling 4 times is one of the ways to keep that risk mitigated as well. Versus we call them 20 times.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Verizon, AT&T, all these big carriers are getting stronger at it. And beautiful part about our dialer is it starts to recognize that and make sure that we're working within it. So good point about the city and just like matching the first 3 digits of where you're calling. So cool. So now we've got a nurture. We've got a caller that's legally calling. They've got somebody to put in the database. And so, Frank, you kind of mentioned like, you could email a database and have phone animal call. You can also do vice versa. It's, works with a cold calling. Now you add somebody to your database who you just need to nurture. Like what would happen there?
Well, yeah, I think, when someone gets on the phone, people are calling and there's some type of script that you're comfortable with. The 2 that I am a big fan of, and there's lots of different scripts out there, is I have a buyer for your home. So actually have a real buyer for the home. And generally it's not Susie and Bob, it's an institutional buyer.
Right.
So you have some type of institutional buyer that makes actually reasonable offers. And you'd be surprised. Some of these institutional offers are higher than asking price because they have so much money sloshing around that you can actually give them a better price on the market.
Yeah.
Because they got to park cash. So there's lots of services out there that you can check out that can hook your broker, can hook you up with not investor 70% lowball offers,
but
like legitimate offers that now that you actually have an institutional buyer that's buying, you run the buy box that they want, what's the criteria, send over to Phone Animal, and the script can literally be I have a buyer or in fact multiple buyers for your home. So that's a really good script if you can back it up ethically.
Yep.
Correct, JP? Ethically, and it's true.
And it's
ethically,
true. We work with several people that do that.
So that is one option. Obviously, if you're an investor, I just want to buy your home, that's fine. And there's some nuances that can be argued. This is definitely not legal advice or opinion, but since you're not soliciting anything as an investor, they say that you don't have to honor the do not call list. You do have to honor the law, like if they say don't call me again or calling at the right times, that's important. But if you're an investor, it could be argued, and this is something if you want to play this game, that since you're the principal buyer in the transaction, you're not soliciting anything. You're literally calling someone to give them an offer on their home. You're the buyer and the seller. You're not selling anything. So you'll see sometimes the investor world will kind of use that definition and with the DNCs and check with your attorney on that one. But that's something that you'll hear out there. They'll bring that up when it comes to compliance that people can debate around. It's a very nuanced rule of legalese. All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what you're saying is like we've got somebody on the phone. We've talked to a verified homeowner. They are interested in getting an offer on their home. They're interested in selling their home. I'm not working with an agent, and here's my phone number and email. And I'm actually thinking of selling, let's say, in the next year. Sound about right?
Yep, exactly how it goes.
Beautiful. Well, here's exactly what happens. Phone Animal passes you lead. You call them right back. Right, JP?
Within 24 hours.
Oh, 5 minutes, dude.
I mean, 5 minutes is the ideal. Like, it's crazy. We've got an agent here in Austin who signed up with us 6 months ago, and she has 13 clients taking 8 closings she calls within 10 minutes.
Yeah. I bet you, I'm just throwing this out there. I bet Phone Animal, if you were on the ball as a client, would entertain the idea of live transfers, but they probably haven't because they know how hard it is to actually have you guys follow up, right? But you want to call, it's hard, right? So you want to have somebody on the ball that can call back right away. Hey, here's the conversation that we had. Maybe even the call recording was there if that was acquired legally. So you hear the context of the call. Here's all the verified information you actually want to sell. And you follow up, ask more questions at the appointment.
Yep.
It's awesome, right?
That's how it works.
Is that how it works? What am I missing, JP?
I mean, no, you nailed it. I mean, now the issue is, you might want some other touch points involved.
Yes, let me give you a couple more. So here's what I would recommend. So let's say this lead comes in from Phone Animal that was compliantly generated and got permission. All the information was there. You call them. Here's the big thing when you follow up. Text them a video of who you are. Remember, leads that come in from direct mail, great. They see who you are. This is who I am. They hear you on radio and TV. They hear you from a referral. They come in online. They actually know who you are. But when you call someone out of the blue on a cold call, like, huh? I mean, yeah, I sure want to sell my house. That's kind of about it. And then you call, there's nothing that precedes you of who you are.
Yep.
So if you want to do a good job on the conversion from a Phone Animal lead to a conversation with you, text them your Google reviews, text them your Better Business reviews, text them your website, a video of you, just so they know who you are when you call. And they say, oh, okay, got it. Now, when you call, you're gonna have a much more frictionless dialogue.
Yep.
Fair enough. Look at
Fair
these
enough.
words I'm using today.
I mean, another big word.
Frictionless dialogue. That's a good name for a book, right? That really helps. And then, here's the deal. A lot of these people you're calling are, and Phone Animal's good at this. They're not saying it's appointments. They're not saying I'm passing you leads. They're very purposeful with the word nurture, right, JP?
Exactly.
Is you're getting people at the top of the funnel that weren't even really thinking about selling, but when you brought up, they're like, oh yeah, I do need to think about that. So they haven't talked to any other agents. They haven't built relationships with anyone else. You're the first in. You have an off-market seller lead, like truly off-market. And now you have the opportunity to start positioning yourself as the go-to expert. And this is where probably honestly viral marketing comes in,
right? With
a video blog. I'll throw out an example. Go check out SiliconValleyRealEstateJournal.com. This is a blog by one of our clients. His name's Brett up in Silicon Valley. He needed a way to position himself in a very affluent and educated market, to say the least, and you just calling up as a cold call wasn't really doing it for those types of sellers.
Right.
So he would send them his blog, and now they're like, oh, you're important.
Yeah.
Right. And it would treat them really differently. So he would send out emails and drip them with videos and have a monthly newsletter. And, a lot of these people are far out. I mean, JP, you have people that probably convert early and we all want to hear that, but really, do you have any idea of like when you call somebody and then they actually sell their home?
So our average time from generating a nurture to the listing is 6 months.
There you go. So if you don't have anything going on in those 6 months, and it's just some stranger calling them on the phone, you're at a disadvantage. You want to get them to consume your content and see who you are online. So they build a relationship with you online, which will reduce the friction when you have the dialogue with them on the phone to hopefully get them taking the point with you. So that's the plan.
And it's, your blogs, but like you're becoming that expert for that potential customer.
Go check out getviral.com or Google Viral Marketing. That's what we've been doing for 12 years. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this together.
Yeah.
Is Phone Animal add qualified sellers to your database that we help nurture. So thank you, JP.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you coming on, doing this with me. I don't know if we have any questions. I think we're just doing such a good job explaining it.
Yeah.
But this was really fun. I really do appreciate your time. So anything else? We missed anything?
Yes, I do have something for you guys. So let's just say you wanted to be, you want some guidance, all right? And you wanted to make sure that you had all your ducks in a row when some demand letter or complaint comes, you're like, oh, crap. Oh, I got hit, right? Well, your heart's going to sink. And then you're going to go, okay, what insurance do I have? What preventative measures did I take to make sure I can make this go away as cheaply as possible, that I was compliant? You follow me? It's kind of like when you run a company, you have an HR department. That's like all they're doing. Okay. Yeah. So it's the same thing here. So here's my recommendation to you. First off, I would go find yourself an attorney that's in your state that knows something about this. And I'm a big fan of Upwork.com. Just go to Upwork, type in, I'm looking for someone that knows DNC and TCPA laws, and hire them for hourly. It's not gonna be that expensive. Maybe $50 to $100 an hour, somewhere in there for like an hour, half hour, whatever. And say, will you give me like the checklist I need to make sure I have everything ready? Because if I get hit, I'm calling you to basically write the response or to call the opposing side to like defend me. And I want this to go away. And the way that you make it go away is that attorney calls, not you, the attorney calls and says, we have this. We're using this dialer. We have these scripts. We have this documentation. We have this training. I have all these things. You sure you want to go through with this? Because you guys are going to lose a lot of money because the plaintiff's firm has to front all the cash for litigation. And they're going to go, never mind. We got someone who knew what they're doing. Yeah. We're going after people that don't know what they're doing. There's too much. This is a waste of time. We'll keep getting our easy $5,000 going away bills and demand letters than dealing with this. Follow me? So I'd find an attorney that can help you put together basically preemptively your response kit when a demand letter or complaint comes in from the court and you're served. Yeah. Sound good?
Great. That's great.
That's what I would
relationship now.
Build the relationship now. I mean, just assume you got sued and put that together. That's what I have. And then you follow that. That's what I'm really, I think that's my best advice I can give you all is everything that we shared with you here is our opinion, hopefully opens your mind. We don't have any qualifications to be sharing any of this with you today. We just thought it would be interesting because we're in the industry and we're business owners like you trying to do the right thing, right? But go find yourself an attorney to put all this together and protect yourself. And now you know.
That's awesome, Frank. Well, cool. Thanks everyone for attending. We're going to send this out after. Yeah, appreciate it again.
Cool, guys. Take care. Later.